This story starts with the memory of that day. Countless eerie black monuments fell from the sky. They dropped through the clouds one after another, their shadows covering the city below. Strange glowing spheres and lightning-like energy swirled around them as they descended. Right after that, barriers were deployed. A massive purple beam shot upward from the middle of the city, twisting the sky like a vortex. People standing on the streets stopped and stared, watching the glowing tower rise in front of them. Monsters called disaster beasts broke through the barriers and invaded the human world. Among them appeared a giant dark figure, the demon of destruction, Ringa, standing tall with purple energy swirling behind him. Soon, countless terrifying beasts flooded the streets. Armored monsters, winged creatures, and huge clawed beasts rushed forward while people screamed and ran. Disaster struck instantly. A monstrous armored creature swung its arm, sending a man falling backward as he shouted for everyone to run. Nearby, his child cried and reached out, calling for his dad as his mother ran while chaos erupted around them. Across the streets, different beasts attacked from all directions. A winged creature swooped down, a burrowing beast erupted from the ground, and blue-flamed monsters charged toward the fleeing civilians. Bodies fell on the road as the destruction spread, and the entire area was swallowed by panic. The armored monster rushed forward with blue flames bursting around its body. Its jaws opened wide as it roared, blue light flashing in its eyes. It shot a swirling vortex of blue flames toward a woman who ran away, holding a child tightly against her chest. The flames spread across the road as the monsters closed in. That woman was caught by the blue flames and threw her child ahead. The small boy reached out weakly while lying on the ground. The woman's voice trembled as she repeated the same word, telling her child, Itsuki, to run. The child looked at her with tear-filled eyes and called out for his mom. Just then, suddenly, someone shouted Itsuki's name again. A drop of sweat slid down a boy's face as the voice echoed. In the next moment, the scene returned to the present. A girl with pink hair turned around toward him. She asked what was wrong, saying he was spacing out. He stood among the lined-up students and answered quietly that it was nothing. Hearing that, she narrowed her eyes and leaned in slightly, asking him again if that was really true. Then, while he was crying, the boy, who was the same Itsuki from that day, stood still with tears running down from one eye. Before he could answer, another student suddenly wrapped an arm around his shoulder and spoke cheerfully. He said Itsuki must be sleepy, since he was usually asleep at this time, but today there was suddenly a school-wide assembly. While they were talking, Itsuki pointed toward the stage and told his friends that the teacher there was dressed strangely. On stage, the teacher, wearing some kind of armored helmet, explained what happened after the disaster beasts appeared. Some humans gained the power to fight back, and they became known as awakened. The armored man described how, 10 years ago, the largest disaster beast attack happened at the northern shore of the Blue River. Awakened from all over the world crossed the river to repel them in what became known as the River Crossing War. Though attacks had decreased since then, the number of descending monuments had started to rise again. A large-scale attack similar to that war was likely coming soon. Itsuki's classmate leaned in again and pointed at a man on the stage. He explained that the person was Izumi Nento, the commander-in-chief of the northern continent. He asked how Itsuki could be from the north and still not know him. Itsuki looked at Izumi Nento quietly. He said the name sounded familiar and admitted he once imagined a hunched old man with a long beard. But the person on stage looked stranger than he expected. Itsuki's classmate grinned and told him he understood. But despite the odd appearance, Izumi Nento was the first awakened. It was thanks to him that humanity knew about the monuments and the disaster beasts. Itsuki's friend spoke excitedly, saying that this man was the strongest awakened. He added that even Tiwajin, known as the Light of Humanity, was his student. The scene shifted back to the armored man, as he explained that recent research showed even ordinary people who had not awakened yet had a chance of gaining power by touching a monument. Izumi Nento stood on the stage, his long cloak spreading like black flames. He told the students he had come to let them try to awaken. He urged them to devote themselves to the fight against the disaster beasts. Just as he said that, a glowing blue blade slashed across the stage as the monument burst open. Light shot outward, scattering fragments, while a guard in sunglasses stood nearby watching. Seeing this, the students reacted with loud excitement. One of them shouted in shock as a monument rose from the ground, wondering if it was magic. Another yelled that this was not the time to be surprised. They clenched their fists, saying it felt like a dream, praying to become awakened. In the crowd, Itsuki's friend grabbed his arm in excitement. He told Itsuki that they finally had a chance to become awakened. His eyes shined as he said the word finally. Saying that, he started walking toward the stage. Seeing this, Itsuki's friend grabbed his shoulder, shouting that he shouldn't be left behind. The pink-haired girl called out to them, telling Itsuki to get back in line properly. But Itsuki walked past her, and a red glow flashed across his eyes. The girl looked at him in shock as the light streaked through the air. A close-up showed Itsuki's expression changing. His eyes shined red with excitement as he said that the day had finally come. On stage, a student touched the large black monument, but nothing happened. A guard immediately called out that it was no good, and told the next person to step forward. The students watching reacted nervously. One boy pointed out that the previous student had broken the school's athletic record in his first year. He said that if even someone like that couldn't awaken, then there was no way he could. The girl beside him replied that athletic ability probably wasn't related, and that it was too early to give up. More students reached out to touch the monument one after another. The guard repeated the same word, next, as the line kept moving forward. The students crowded together anxiously. One boy with white hair nervously pointed out that not a single person had awakened yet. Others muttered in worry. A girl with short brown hair said she thought it would be easy. The boy beside her trembled, wondering if their entire school would be wiped out. The guard called out the next name loudly. Oishi Hikaru. Nearby, a group of students whispered their concerns. One girl said she didn't want him to awaken. Another explained that he was already a habitual bully, and if he gained powers, they would be in trouble. A boy suddenly pointed toward the monument and shouted that something was happening. Lightning erupted violently from the monument, blasting outward. Oishi Hikaru's body was lifted off the ground as crackling blue electricity surrounded him. The sudden burst drew everyone's attention. A glowing blue screen appeared beside him, showing his information as he grinned excitedly. He thought to himself that both Izumi Nento and the woman beside him would surely recognize him now. The screen displayed, Oishi Hikaru, Human, Level 0, Job Elementalist, Lightning Gift, Grade 2, Undisclosed, Status Attack 3, Agility 4, Defense 2, Magic 3, Total 12 stat points. Watching from beside the monument, the blue-haired woman spoke softly. She told her father that they finally had one. She explained that level 0 stats usually totaled only 5, but this boy had reached 12. Her father, Izumi Nento, remained calm. The girl said it was still better than nothing. The school courtyard grew silent as Oishi Hikaru raised both arms triumphantly. Confetti sparkled around him while he grinned proudly. He muttered to himself, wondering if the old man Nento had anything to say to the first awakened student. But before he could boast further, someone grabbed his shoulder from behind. He turned sharply, surprised to see Itsuki stepping past him. Oishi spun toward Itsuki angrily, shouting at him. He demanded to know why Itsuki was touching him with dirty hands, yelling if he had a death wish. The watching students whispered among themselves. One girl asked who the boy was, noticing that he had cut the line. Another replied that it was Tenma Itsuki from Class 5. Someone else muttered that he was finished. Once Oishi targeted someone, it was over. From above, the blue-haired woman and Commander Nento observed quietly. The woman narrowed her eyes and said she sensed incredibly intense emotions coming from that student. Itsuki stood before the towering monument, placing his hand on the stone. His eyes glowed red as dark memories flashed through him. He muttered that he refused to forget his hatred for the disaster beasts. He had burned the events of that day deep into his mind. Commander Nento stared forward, as if sensing something unbelievable. Out on the awakening platform, a massive blue apparition rose behind Itsuki. The glowing figure towered over him, holding a sword and radiating overwhelming power. Itsuki stood calmly beneath it. As blue light filled the air, the monument erupted with energy. A sharp glowing structure formed above Itsuki, surrounded by swirling streams of light. The light expanded outward, wrapping around the entire area like a giant lotus blooming in the sky. The crowd below watched as the school grounds were covered in a glowing dome. Students stared upward, speechless. One boy pointed out that the pillar of light reached hundreds of meters into the sky. Another said it looked far more spectacular than Oshi's awakening. Two of Itsuki's classmates watched with excitement. Both of them smiled and cheered proudly, shouting that this was exactly what they expected from Itsuki. The blue-haired officer stared at the sky in shock. She said that this phenomenon only appeared when the rarest job, Order Breaker, was born. She placed a hand near her mouth, unable to hide her surprise. Even Commander Nento said he looked forward to seeing how capable the student would be. Seeing that, Oishi's expression twisted with frustration as he glared at the overwhelming light. Itsuki opened his eyes in confusion. Surrounded by shimmering blue energy, he wondered where he was, and asked himself if he had awakened. Looking around, he found himself sitting cross-legged in the center of a massive glowing lotus made of light. Countless petals surrounded him, floating in a calm, otherworldly space. Suddenly, a blue system screen appeared before him. Itsuki stared at it in shock as it displayed Tenma Itsuki's stats. He was a human at level 0, which was fixed. His job was Order Breaker, Nirvana. His gift was Nirvana, a special grade. His level was fixed. His stats increased when acquiring skills. It removed all debuffs and fully healed injuries. Just then, another blue window appeared, showing his skill, Over Mimesis, which was Z rank. It analyzed enemy attacks and allowed the acquisition of counter skills. Then another screen showed Itsuki's stats. His were Attack 0, Agility 0, Defense 0, Magic 0, Total 0. Itsuki's face went pale as he stared at the results. His jaw dropped, and he exclaimed silently that everything was at 0. But then, 2 blue system windows appeared in front of Itsuki. The first announced that the Z-rank skill Over Mimesis had been acquired. The second stated that the special grade gift, Nirvana, had activated, increasing all of his stats by 200. Another screen displayed the changes. Attack went from 0 to 200. Agility went from 0 to 200. Defense went from 0 to 200. Seeing this, Itsuki's expression brightened. He looked at the glowing screen with excitement and said he understood. He realized that whenever he gained new skills through Over Mimesis, Nirvana would raise his stats. Even if he couldn't level up like others, he could still grow stronger in his own way. He clenched his fist and smiled confidently. He admitted he didn't know what level this power compared to, but he had no doubt he had become an awakened. With determination in his eyes, he declared that he would annihilate the disaster beasts. A massive burst of blue light exploded from the monument. Students around him shielded their faces and shouted that the light was too bright. Some grabbed their eyes in pain. Through the blinding radiance, Itsuki's silhouette stood tall within the monument's glow. Lightning and energy swirled around him in a powerful display. Oishi stared at the scene, trembling with disbelief. His face twisted as he shouted that such a thing was impossible. The blue-haired officer gasped as she looked at the glowing monitor. She covered her mouth in shock and said that these stats were unbelievable for a rookie awakened. Even Commander Nento admitted that it was hard to believe, but stated that Itsuki was undoubtedly among the strongest of all new awakened in history. Outside, Itsuki stepped out of the light, petals of blue energy swirling around him, watching his silhouette shine with power. Just one word left Commander Nento's mouth: the strongest. A system window displayed his public information. Tenma Itsuki human, level 0 fixed. Job Order Breaker. Gift Special Grade. Undisclosed. Skill undisclosed. Status, Attack 200, Agility 200, Defense 200, Magic 200, Total 800. In the crowd, students and teachers erupted in cheers. They shouted that Tenma's stats had shot up all at once. Someone cried out in disbelief, saying they never imagined their school would have someone this amazing. An older teacher yelled that this feat would go down in school history. But among the cheering crowd, Oishi trembled with rage. Lightning crackled around him as his eyes glowed red. He clenched his teeth and glared at Itsuki, furious that the cheers he believed should have been his were now stolen away. Oishi's rage exploded as lightning surged across his body. He shouted that a loser like Itsuki should stay a loser. Students around him backed away as sparks crackled through the air, their faces tense with shock. Electricity flooded the entire hall, and Oishi stepped forward with a crazed expression. He declared that he would eliminate Itsuki using his newly acquired skill. Above the crowd, Itsuki stood calmly, staring down from the top of the monument as lightning scattered below him. Itsuki clenched his fist as a blue system window appeared. The screen displayed: C-rank skill, Silver Serpent, detected. Over Mimesis activated. Itsuki's eyes sharpened as multiple blue panels began processing. The analysis started at 27%, then climbed quickly, 57%, 69%, and rising while lightning flickered around him. Itsuki made his move and jumped with lightning speed. The floor cracked under the impact as the lightning slammed down. Students gasped when they looked up and realized something was wrong. One girl asked where Itsuki had gone. Another student said they saw a flash of electricity. And then Itsuki suddenly vanished. Oishi looked around in confusion, wondering where Itsuki was. A glowing blue window reached 88% as Itsuki appeared behind Oishi like a shadow wrapped in lightning. His eyes shone with a blinding horizontal beam. Oishi froze in terror. Sweat poured down his face as he realized Itsuki was behind him. He panicked, unable to move. Itsuki placed a hand on Oishi's shoulder. His voice was cold as he told Oishi to consider himself lucky for being born human. He added that if Oishi were a disaster beast, he would have killed him about 100 times already. Oishi trembled uncontrollably, fear tightening his entire body. Moments later, Itsuki casually stepped forward while Oishi collapsed onto the ground. Another student shouted in shock, asking when Itsuki had moved behind him. Someone else laughed nervously, saying Oishi must have been so scared his legs gave out. Another warned them to be quiet before Oishi heard them. A new panel floated above Itsuki, showing 94%, then rising quickly. Blue energy swirled around him as the progress reached 99%. Itsuki glanced at the glowing screen and commented that maybe the analysis was fast because it was only a C-rank skill. The display turned pitch black and flashed. Analysis progress 100%. Lightning exploded around him as a new message appeared, saying C-rank skill Thunderbreaker acquired. Itsuki stood in the center of the crackling blue electricity, his body glowing as the newly gained power wrapped around him like living lightning. The students watched nervously as the light began to glow again. One of the boys stared in shock, saying it was happening once more. Another student, wearing sunglasses, adjusted them with a grin, saying it was a good thing he had brought them. Inside the glowing space, Itsuki appeared sitting calmly with a thoughtful expression. He realized that every time an analysis finished, he was forcibly brought into this strange place. In front of him, the system windows appeared, stating that the analysis of Silver Serpent was complete, and the skill Thunderbreaker had been acquired. Another window opened, showing the description of Thunderbreaker Level 1. The skill allowed him to absorb C-rank and lower lightning attacks into his body. When releasing the absorbed lightning energy, his agility would increase by 50%. It also had a passive effect. Each time he absorbed a C-rank lightning attack, his agility would permanently increase by 5%. Another message added that all his stats had increased by 10, all debuffs were removed, and his injuries were fully healed. Outside, the students shielded their eyes as a massive burst of blue light exploded from Itsuki's body. The lightning wrapped around him in swirling arcs as he stood in the center of the arena steps. The electric pressure pushed outward, and the crowd instinctively stepped back or covered their faces. Someone shouted that Itsuki was now cloaked in lightning from head to toe. Another student panicked, saying Itsuki's lightning was even brighter than Oishi's. Oishi, who had attacked him earlier, stared with trembling eyes, unable to believe how Itsuki had learned a skill like that. Itsuki's body glowed intensely as the system displayed his rising stats. It showed each attribute increasing: attack, agility, defense, and magic, all rising from 200 to 210, bringing his total from 800 to 840. Just then, the students looked up at the sky in confusion. One of them said it had been sunny just a moment ago. Another asked if it was rain. A third student lifted his hand, trying to feel the drops, when someone suddenly shouted that something was falling. A dark, coffin-shaped object wrapped in lightning descended from the stormy clouds. The rain poured harder as it crashed down toward the school grounds. The woman with blue hair and glasses saw it and shouted in shock, calling it a monument. She questioned why it had appeared here of all places. Commander Nento quickly announced that the school-wide assembly was cancelled, and ordered everyone to evacuate outside the school grounds, just like in their drills. He realized that there was no doubt the target was him. The woman turned to Commander Nento and told him that they should escape too, since combat wasn't their specialty. But Commander Nento beside her shook his head. He warned that if they ran, everyone else would panic. He pointed ahead, telling her to look, because the boy standing there was calmer than both of them. Ahead of them, lightning exploded around the descending object. Students ran in all directions, fleeing in fear. Only one boy, Itsuki, remained still in the middle of the field, bathed in a faint blue glow. From behind, the blue-haired woman shouted at him, demanding to know why he wasn't running. A massive dark pillar crashed down from the sky, shaking the ground as debris exploded outward. Rain poured heavily around it. Nearby, a group of students panicked. One boy shouted that disaster beasts were coming and urged Itsuki to escape, but Itsuki, with glowing red eyes, stood still. His voice was cold as he declared that he would exterminate every single one of them. His friends stared at him in shock. One of them yelled that he would die if he didn't run. Another insisted that since he had only just awakened, he couldn't possibly fight disaster beasts. They told him to leave everything to the other awakened, but Itsuki shook his head. He calmly told them to trust him. The pink-haired girl hesitated, worry written all over her face. Finally, she shouted that if he died, he shouldn't blame them. She grabbed the other guy's clothes and dragged him with her. The glasses-wearing boy asked her if it was really okay to let him go, reminding her that the enemy was a disaster beast, a walking weapon of mass murder. As the two ran off, Itsuki looked ahead with a crazed smile. His eye glowed bright red through the rain. He muttered that his first enemy after becoming an awakened was the one who killed his parents, and that it was lucky. Lightning curled around him as he stepped forward. A glowing panel appeared beside him, displaying the status of the creature before him. It was Skeleton Soldier 10369. Level 8. Gift. Grade 2. Defense increases by 100%. If the enemy's attack exceeds its own defense, the gift becomes invalid. Skill. Bonefire. B rank. Its stats were: Attack 15, Agility 10, Defense 120 plus 120, Magic 30, total 295. The skeleton soldier stood covered in blue flames as Itsuki faced it head-on. A surge of lightning wrapped around Itsuki's arms as he tightened his stance. His red eyes glowed sharply as he wondered if he should test the skill he had just acquired. In the next moment, he charged forward, electricity exploding around his body. Blue lightning trailed behind him as he rushed toward the flaming skeleton beast on the field. The two forces collided, sparks scattering through the rain. The skeletal beast swung its arms to punch, but Itsuki dodged. Then Itsuki swung his electrified fist with full force, shouting that he would not let anyone else die. His punch struck the creature's chest, and a violent burst of energy erupted. The impact sent the disaster beast flying across the field, smashing through the school building. The ground trembled as debris scattered in all directions. Students watching from afar stared in shock. One student said Itsuki's strength was too overwhelming, that maybe they didn't need to run anymore. A female student was stunned, seeing how the impact had blasted the monster away in a single hit. The blue-haired inspector stared at the ruined wall, stunned that a rookie who had just become awakened could send a level 8 disaster beast flying with only one blow. Heavy rain poured down as Commander Nento watched from a distance, thinking to himself that Itsuki's speed and power were on a completely different level from other level zeros. But even then, he believed that defeating a skeleton soldier was impossible. He explained that skeleton soldiers had two troublesome abilities. The first was a gift that increased their defense. The second was a terrifying skill called Bonefire, a flame that burned anything it touched into ash. Blue flames erupted violently across the field, spreading like a wave toward Itsuki. The students gasped as the fire surged forward. Itsuki's friends cried out in fear, shouting Itsuki's name. Oishi stepped forward with a crazed smile, yelling that the fool who didn't know his place would just burn to ash. Meanwhile, glowing screens appeared in front of Itsuki. A system message informed him that the enemy was using Bonefire. The analysis began, first at 1%, then rapidly accelerating. As the blue flames engulfed him, more screens appeared. 25%. Itsuki stood firmly inside the blazing Bonefire, surrounded by data streams. He calmly observed that the analysis speed increased whenever the enemy's skill struck him. The blue-haired instructor watched with widening eyes. She said that even a level 10 awakened wouldn't stand a chance if they took a direct hit. Blue flames continued to swallow the arena as Itsuki stood in the center, half of his body burned away and glowing like a skeleton. The blue-haired instructor's voice echoed through the flames, saying it would be tragic for a genius who had just appeared to be killed by a disaster beast before he could grow. System windows floated around Itsuki, showing 77% and 81%. Itsuki looked at his burning body and muttered that this was what it felt like when the body burned. He added softly that it must have hurt. A memory flickered through the flames. He saw his mother's face, half burned away. He realized that it hurt so much, but even in her last minutes, she smiled so as not to scare Itsuki. Commander Nento peered out with a sharp gaze, wondering if Itsuki hadn't used his full power yet. The blue fire swirled violently as the progress bar climbed. Itsuki's skeletal hand tightened, and he said that once the analysis was complete, the enemy was finished. The system window flashed. Analysis progress, 100%. Outside the flames, the students whispered nervously. One asked if it had been too soon to hope for a rookie who had just become awakened. Another admitted he had been stupid to expect anything. But suddenly, someone pointed forward in shock. He shouted that the blue lotus flower had appeared again. He said Itsuki might show them another miracle. Blue light swirled around Itsuki as he stood inside the burning aura, wondering what kind of skill he would gain this time. The flames around him continued to fade, revealing his burned and cracked body beneath the blue energy. Then a system window appeared, showing that the analysis of Bonefire was complete. It stated that a new skill, Black Wall, had been acquired. More windows followed, explaining the skill. The active effect would create ice on the body by consuming magic power, and could block B rank or lower fire skills. The passive effect increased defense when blocking those skills. Another notification appeared, saying that Black Wall LV2 had been acquired and that all of his stats had increased by 20. It stated that all debuffs were removed and his injuries were fully healed. A new window showed his updated status. Attack, agility, defense, and magic had all risen from 210 to 230, bringing his total from 820. Itsuki looked at the glowing screen calmly. He remembered how even his strongest attack earlier couldn't break the skeleton soldier's defense. Now, with this new increase, he believed he should be able to do it. Suddenly, blue lotus petals unfolded around him, blooming like a massive light flower. Itsuki stood at the center, his body surrounded by shining energy. The students watching gasped in shock. One of them cried out in relief, saying Itsuki was alive. Others cheered loudly, convinced that he would succeed. Someone pointed out that a full recovery like this was practically a miracle. The blue-haired instructor stared in shock as she watched the scene unfold. She wondered aloud if Itsuki had a self-healing skill. She had seen him use a lightning element skill earlier, so she couldn't understand how he was recovering. Commander Nento was also shocked. He remembered that order breakers were considered the most mysterious job, but even among them, Itsuki seemed uniquely strange. Meanwhile, Itsuki stood in the center of the glowing lotus petals. His body had recovered completely, not a single injury left. Blue fragments drifted around him as he looked down at his restored form. Itsuki whispered in disbelief, saying it was a perfect recovery. He wondered whether he would heal even if his limbs were cut off, or if his brain was destroyed. He admitted he was curious about the limits of his self-healing. Suddenly, the skeleton soldier roared, its armor burning with blue bone fire. The flames surged violently as the monster charged forward. Itsuki turned calmly, raising his arm as black spikes spread across his skin. The blue flames rushed toward him. His entire body became engulfed in the fire, but he stood unmoving within it. Moments later, his silhouette appeared again through the blaze. Thick layers of black spikes covered him completely, and his red eyes glowed coldly behind the cracked ice armor. Itsuki cracked through the air as he shot upward. The explosion of blue flames shook the area when he crashed down. Itsuki's armored body glowed with electricity as he readied another strike. The skeletal beast struck, but Itsuki moved again, instantly appearing behind the beast faster than anyone could follow. Itsuki then raised his arm, and it turned into a massive black spike sword, lightning running through it. Itsuki moved with lightning speed, and with a single slash, cut the skeletal beast in two with that sword. The students watching from afar were stunned. One of them said that Itsuki moved behind the disaster beast in an instant, as if he had teleported. Another said that only awakened people could track movements like that. Oishi was also stunned, saying she couldn't see Itsuki's movements at all. She compared it to what she had seen before. The blue-haired instructor questioned if someone like Itsuki could really be a rookie. On the other hand, as the dust settled, Itsuki stood alone. As the black spikes on his body disappeared, he kicked and destroyed the skeleton beast's head. He was stunned to realize that it not only generated solid armor to protect his body, but could also shape that armor into any kind of weapon he wanted. A divine skill that combined both offense and defense. Suddenly, someone shouted his name. Itsuki turned his head in surprise as his friend rushed toward him and wrapped him tightly in a relieved hug, saying he was glad Itsuki had won because he had been worried the entire time. Itsuki stayed still for a moment before asking about Saya. His friend pulled back and admitted that Saya had been watching earlier with a face that looked like she might cry, but now she was nowhere to be seen. Itsuki looked toward the crowd, wondering why she didn't come. He scanned the students in the distance, confusion growing. He quietly wondered if she might be angry. Not far away, the blue-haired instructor watched the aftermath of the fight. She spoke seriously, noting that for a boy to defeat a skeleton soldier, something even a level 10 awakened would struggle against was unbelievable. Commander Nento called the blue-haired instructor Choha and told her to stay and assist with the cleanup. He also told her to deliver his message to the principal that he would be taking Itsuki with him. On the other hand, Itsuki's friend patted Itsuki's hand, saying there was no way Saya would be angry after he won. He guessed that Saya was probably scared of falling behind Itsuki, so she might have gone to touch the monument instead. Itsuki lowered his gaze slightly and murmured that he hoped that was the case. Just then, a voice called out to him, asking if he was Tenma Itsuki. Itsuki turned and noticed someone approaching. Commander Nento, wearing a long cape, stood before him. Itsuki looked up at him in silence. People watching from a distance began whispering among themselves. They saw that Izumi Nento, a famous figure, was talking directly to Itsuki. Some wondered if he intended to take Itsuki as a student. Others doubted it, saying the only person Commander Nento had ever accepted as a student was Tiwajin, humanity's strongest. They insisted that no matter how strong Itsuki seemed, something like that wouldn't happen. Itsuki's friend stepped away nervously and said he would go look for Saya. Commander Nento then looked down at Itsuki and spoke calmly. He told Itsuki that he was quite special. Itsuki looked at Commander Nento and repeated the word softly, asking what he meant by calling him special. Commander Nento observed Itsuki closely and saw dark energy gathering around Itsuki. He told Itsuki that his heart seemed filled with anger and hatred. Itsuki stood in the darkness, a glowing light shining across his eyes. Commander Nento then stepped forward and said that he wanted to know the reason behind that hatred. Itsuki finally spoke, explaining that 10 years ago, his parents were killed by disaster beasts while trying to protect him. A scene from his childhood flashed before his eyes, his younger self crying helplessly as danger closed in. He remembered how he had nearly been killed as well, but an awakened appeared at the last moment and saved him. The powerful figure struck the beast right in front of the frightened Itsuki. Itsuki told Commander Nento that, right before his eyes, he had watched his mother die. A glowing blue flame slowly consumed his mother's body. Even as half her face vanished into bone and ash, she smiled gently at Itsuki and told him that he must walk the rest of the path on his own. Young Itsuki stared at her with trembling eyes, unable to understand. His voice cracked as he cried out for his mother. Anger raged inside him as he looked at the beast. Words echoed in his mind, reminding him that both his mother and father had died because of beings like this. Tears streamed down his face as he shouted in denial. Before him, a towering monstrous figure rose from the darkness, an enormous being surrounded by raging purple flames. Its shadow loomed over Itsuki as he realized the horrifying truth. The creature before him was the root of all evil. Shaking with rage, Itsuki glared upward. His eyes burned red as hatred filled his heart. On that day, he swore a vow. He would kill that demon, and every last creature of its kind. In the present, Itsuki clenched his jaw, a tear slipping down his cheek as he shouted that he would kill all of its kind. Commander Nento looked at him and commented that even with a heart consumed by hatred, Itsuki still shed tears. Itsuki raised a hand to his face and explained calmly. Ever since he witnessed the tragedy of his mother's death, his left eye had stopped producing tears, but his right eye had begun crying on its own. Thanks to that, he said, he never forgot his hatred for the disaster beasts. Commander Nento then asked if Itsuki would become his student. He promised to get him into the Salvation League and help him gain the immense power needed to take revenge on the disaster beasts. Itsuki repeated the words quietly, asking what the Salvation League was. Commander Nento then explained. He told Itsuki that to counter disaster beasts more efficiently and scientifically, the governments of the 5 continents had gathered strong awakens from around the world and created an official organization. The members of this organization were called saviors. He continued, saying that saviors were provided with resources such as dedicated training grounds and powerful weapons. They were also guaranteed high compensation. Even trainee saviors received 10,000 gold per month. Itsuki listened in surprise, realizing that 10,000 gold was enough to buy a car. Commander Nento then warned that such generous treatment was not given for free. Saviors were expected to constantly fight disaster beasts on the front lines and protect people's safety. Itsuki stood shirtless, his expression calm as he spoke. He said that he did not care about high pay or special resources. What mattered most to him was something else. Determination filled his eyes. His gaze sharpened as he clenched his fist. He declared that what mattered most was fighting disaster beasts on the front lines. With unwavering resolve, he announced that he wanted to become a savior as well. Commander Nento then explained the process. He said that the Salvation League held an exam every February, known as the National Salvation League Tournament, with more than 10,000 participants. Each contestant earned points based on performance, but only those who ranked within the top 100 were allowed to become saviors. Hearing this, Itsuki asked what the highest record in history was. Commander Nento told Itsuki that it would not be very useful as a reference. He explained calmly that the record was 115,000 points, set by Tiwajin 11 years ago. He added that passing required only 30% of that score, while securing first place required at least 50%. Itsuki silently recalled the name Tiwajin, the strongest awakened, known as the light of humanity, the one Rikuru had mentioned. Commander Nento told Itsuki that Jin was special, and that comparing himself to Jin would only bring despair. But even so, Itsuki should still have confidence, because he believed Itsuki could one day stand shoulder to shoulder with Jin. Itsuki stood shirtless on the training ground, his expression steady. With unwavering determination, he declared that he would surpass Tiwa Jin. Hearing those words, Commander Nento's eyes widened inside the helmet, reacting with surprise. He remembered something from the past, a time when he had stood with Tiwa Jin, and told him that he had become incredibly popular. The younger generation was trying to follow in his footsteps, but Tiwa Jin warned that following alone would never win the war against the disaster beasts. Someday someone would surpass him, just as a new sunrise replaces the setting sun. Tiwa Jin said that he looked forward to that day. Seeing Itsuki's resolve, Commander Nento thought that the sunrise Tiwa Jin had been waiting for had finally appeared. A few hours later, Commander Nento took Itsuki to another place. There, when Itsuki saw the massive dome-shaped structure rising in the distance, glowing under the sky, he asked quietly what it was. Commander Nento explained that these monuments acted as passages connecting the human world to the world of disaster beasts. He said that if the beasts were killed but the monuments were left untouched, new beasts would simply appear again. He pointed at the massive dome-shaped building, and explained that this facility was created to isolate monuments that couldn't be destroyed. Awakened individuals periodically entered it to sweep out the disaster beasts that emerged. This kept the danger under control, and also served as training. Itsuki looked at the building and asked if it was a training facility. Commander Nento, standing beside him, confirmed it, saying they called these places stages. He explained that the number and strength of the beasts inside couldn't be controlled, making it extremely dangerous. Commander Nento told Itsuki that the beasts in this specific stage were especially strong. Among all rookie-level stages, this one had the highest mortality rate. Because of that, people called it the rookie's graveyard. He told Itsuki that when Jin was still a rookie, he had cleared this deadly stage in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Commander Nento turned to Itsuki and said that if Itsuki truly intended to surpass Jin, then 3 minutes would be his limit. As Itsuki walked toward the giant facility, Commander Nento told him that if he could clear the stage within 3 minutes, he would accept him as his student. Hearing that, Itsuki's eyes sharpened with determination. He wanted to surpass Jin and become Commander Nento's student. People in the lobby turned their heads when they saw a familiar figure. Someone pointed and said that Mr. Izumi had arrived. Another person noticed Itsuki walking beside him and asked if that was the rumored rookie. The crowd stared in surprise, whispering that there was no way a rookie could walk next to Mr. Izumi unless he was an awakened on Tiwa Jin's level. Itsuki looked around quietly and wondered to himself if this person was really that famous. Thinking that, he walked toward the stage entrance and saw the display showing the disaster beast level inside, level 10. He noted that it was only 2 levels higher than the skeleton soldier he had faced earlier, and wondered how strong that really was. But what surprised him more was that even though several people were gathered nearby, none of them seemed prepared to enter the stage. He wondered why that was. Someone nearby muttered that the rookie looked way too confident, and assumed that a high-level awakened must be accompanying him. Another wished they could be taken along too, while someone else joked that the rookie probably came just to flirt with the receptionist, saying that with a decent face, he was getting cocky. At the counter, the receptionist approached him with a polite smile. She asked if he wanted to enter the stage and how many challengers there would be. He calmly replied that it would be just him. Hearing that, the area fell silent as the receptionist stared at him across the counter. Suddenly, she leaned forward and yelled angrily. She told him not to make unfunny jokes and asked if he was messing around. She warned him that if he was just there to hit on her, it was pointless. She explained that even if the place was an artificial stage, it was still dangerous. People could get hurt or even die. Itsuki stared at her in confusion, wondering what she was even talking about. Behind them, several people watching from afar started laughing. They joked that he really was there to hit on her. Some said that there were always people who treated the stages like dating spots, and those people usually got scolded and went home. Itsuki looked at the receptionist calmly and explained the misunderstanding. He told her he had absolutely no interest in her. He said he only came to challenge the stage, nothing more. But the receptionist sighed and rubbed her forehead. She told him he didn't have to act tough just because he was embarrassed. She even said she would give him her contact information so he should just go home. But Itsuki's expression darkened. A shadow fell over his face. He told her not to make him repeat himself. He didn't care about her contact information at all. He only wanted her to let him enter the stage. Hearing that, the receptionist reluctantly agreed, and told him not to blame her if he died. She held out a metal bracelet with a nervous expression, clearly shaken. Seeing that, Itsuki muttered that she should have just given permission from the beginning, instead of making him repeat himself. The people watching from behind whispered among themselves. One man called Itsuki an idiot, saying he could have gotten her contact information but chose to act tough instead. Another pointed out that a level 0 rookie challenging a level 10 stage was basically suicide. They guessed he would run out in less than a minute. Someone else noticed how confident he looked and wondered if he might succeed since he also had a special grade gift. But another person reminded everyone that for awakened people, gifts were just bonuses. The most important thing was level. No matter how special the gift was, it meant nothing if the level was low. On the other hand, standing in front of the gate, Itsuki checked his bracelet. He said that his personal information was registered on it, so scanning it would let him enter. A glowing screen appeared above his hand, confirming, "Entry by awakened Tenma Itsuki has been approved." Itsuki stretched his hands forward and took a breath. He reminded himself that the promise was within 3 minutes. Then he said it was time to begin. A bright digital timer appeared, showing 001 in green numbers. And just as the gate opened, Itsuki moved with explosive speed. Red energy surrounded his body as he dashed forward, his eyes glowing sharply. He looked around and noticed the vast area. He thought that the interior space was much bigger than he expected. As he ran across the grassy field toward a tall black tower, he told himself that it was his first time entering a stage, even if it was an artificial one. Suddenly, Itsuki noticed a creature rush in, and said that it was coming. That creature jumped toward him. It was a wooden monster from the Kodama tribe. A blue window appeared beside it, showing its information. Kodama Num 1307. From Kodama tribe. Level 4. Gift none. Attack 49, Agility 48, Defense 53, Magic 24, Total 174. Seeing it coming, black spikes formed on Itsuki's hand. In the next moment, he slashed downward with overwhelming force. A sharp strike of energy cut through the target as he launched his attack. Itsuki stood calmly with the massive black spike axe hand. He smiled and remarked that an axe was always the best tool for trees. He then asked the remaining monsters how it felt to see their comrade cut in half. Dozens of Kodama creatures rushed at him. He stood tall and called them rotten trees. Outside, Choha spoke to her father, Commander Nento. She asked why, out of so many rookie stages, he had made the newcomer enter this one specifically. Commander Nento answered that Itsuki claimed he would surpass Jin, so he simply brought him to the same stage Jin first challenged. Hearing that, Choha frowned and said that surpassing Jin was impossible unless someone stepped outside the bounds of humanity. Hearing that, Commander Nento asked Choha if she believed Jin had already transcended humanity. Choha recalled the time she met Jin for the first time. She had once thought Jin was kind and approachable. Then she saw Jin instantly kill a level 97 disaster beast. She recalled that Jin's eyes during that fight were different. She remembered those eyes clearly. Cold, solitary, and transcendent. She felt that they didn't seem human at all. She described Jin's gaze, saying his eyes were like the eyes of a god. Hearing that, Commander Nento told Choha that Itsuki also had potential comparable to Jin. But at the moment, he was nothing more than an unpolished gemstone. He added that if Jin could be compared to a godlike existence who saved people, then Itsuki was the opposite, a demon consumed by hatred. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Itsuki stood among the fallen wooden beasts. He stated that Overmimesis wouldn't even activate against disaster beasts of this level. Just then, a dark silhouette appeared behind him, its eyes glowing red. His own eye glowed the same way as the shadow towered over him. In the next moment, his body moved at extreme speed, cutting through the enemies with a sharp motion. Itsuki stood before the fallen creature and looked down calmly. He asked if that was the end. He examined the broken body, and wondered if level 10 disaster beasts were only this strong. But then he thought that if that were true, this place wouldn't be called the Rookie's Graveyard. There had to be something else. Just then, a blue system window appeared before him. It displayed, B-rank skill, self-regeneration detected. Overmimesis activated. Another window followed. Analysis started. Then a second one. Analysis progress 5%. Itsuki turned as a sudden sound caught his attention. His expression shifted slightly. That level 10 disaster beast rose again behind him, its entire form twisting upward with glowing green eyes. Its long vine-like limbs burst outward and lunged at him. Itsuki braced himself, thinking in surprise that he had cut off half its head, yet it had regenerated. The moment the towering monster regenerated, Itsuki narrowed his eyes and muttered that he knew things wouldn't be straightforward. A glowing blue system window appeared in front of him, revealing the creature's details. It identified the monster as regenerated Kodama Sum 520 of the Kodama tribe, a level 10 beast with a grade 2 gift. Its defense had dropped by 50%, but its self-healing ability had greatly increased. Another blue window listed its stats clearly. Attack, 110, Agility 100, Defense 60, Magic 180, Total 450. As the creature's roots and branches whipped wildly, Itsuki tightened his fist. A system alert flashed. Black wall activated. The next second, his hand was covered by black spikes cutting through the roots. Itsuki jumped at the monster. While dodging the monster's attacks, he quickly analyzed the situation. He realized the beast couldn't regenerate if he damaged it fast enough. He told himself that he had to deal massive damage in a short amount of time. The analysis window appeared beside him. Itsuki smashed forward with his armored arm, splitting through the Kodama's defenses as sparks and debris burst around them. His eyes glowed red as he moved like a shadow, slicing through the forest of wooden limbs. Each step sent shockwaves across the ground, and each strike pushed the progress window higher. Itsuki surged forward again, his blade-like arm shining with a cold blue light. Then he shot upward before crashing down like a falling spear, splitting the monster's giant body in half. Light from his attack cut straight through the Kodama, illuminating the entire battlefield. The towering creature's body split down the middle, a glowing crack running from its head to its torso. Its golden eyes shone through the gaps as its massive frame began to fracture. Itsuki watched with sharp red eyes, a grin forming on his face. He said he wasn't done yet. He said he would mince the creature completely so it wouldn't regenerate. In the next moment, he raised both arms. A blinding vertical slash of light tore downward, cutting the giant monster clean in half. Cuts spread across the creature's body, and the wooden shell shattered into countless pieces. The fragments scattered through the air, glowing faintly before breaking apart completely. As the dust settled, Itsuki lowered his arm and exhaled. He said this should be enough. He added that using black wall for so long was draining his magic, but before he could rest, vines and roots twisted together again in front of him. That wooden creature's form surged upward with glowing yellow eyes, rising from the remains and preparing to attack. The glowing display in front of Itsuki showed 60%, but the fight still raged on. Wooden tendrils whipped toward Itsuki as he moved between them with sharp, fluid steps. He glanced back with an annoyed expression, thinking that even after all of this, the monster still refused to die. He quietly muttered that it was becoming a real pain. The attacks continued to strike from every angle. As he dodged, he noticed something important. Every time the monster regenerated, Overmimos's analysis speed increased. His eyes narrowed. That meant the longer this continued, the faster the analysis would complete. He realized he needed a new approach. He decided to cancel Black Wall to conserve his remaining magic, and instead rely on Thunderbreaker to avoid the attacks while keeping his distance. Continuing this pattern until the analysis finished would be the winning strategy, but there was a problem. He didn't have much time left before the 3-minute limit ran out. Lightning crackled across his arm as the display climbed to 75%. Determination hardened his expression. He activated Thunderbreaker and Black Wall at the same time, pushing his offense to the extreme while forcing the monster to repeatedly regenerate. Doing so, he thought, would increase the analysis speed even further. Power surged around him, arcs of lightning dancing across his arm as he charged forward with a cold, focused expression. The creature's wooden body split down the middle, its golden eyes glowing through the cracks. Electric sparks flashed violently as he fought. If Overmimos failed when his magic hit 0, he knew he would die right there. The percentage rose to 80%, then 85%, as he forced his body forward through the storm of wooden strikes. He told himself that if he died now, then everything he'd done would amount to nothing. Lightning gathered in his arm as he unleashed another powerful strike. But right before hitting the monster's head, his magic power hit 0. Finally, his body staggered. Blood dripped from his mouth. He lowered his head and quietly muttered, "Damn it." Itsuki stood pierced by sharp wooden spikes, his body battered and barely holding on. He lowered his head as white steam drifted off his wounds. He quietly admitted that his magic seemed to have finally run out. Then a glowing window appeared beside him, showing 99%. Seeing that, Itsuki's expression sharpened. Blood streamed down his chin as his eyes glowed coldly. He declared that, just as he thought, Overmimos did not need magic to activate. With a strained smile, he announced that this match was his win. The window in front of him then showed. Analysis progress, 100%. A bright lotus-shaped energy began expanding around him. glowing blue and cracking the wooden spikes. A system window appeared, saying self-regeneration analysis complete. Lotus burst acquired. The lotus continued to bloom outward, pushing everything away as more spikes shattered. Another window displayed the details. Lotus burst, LV2. Active effect consumes magic to deal explosive damage to enemies within a 5-meter diameter. Power scales with magic consumption. Passive effect. Each time Lotus burst defeats a living creature of level 1 or higher, all skill ranges increase by +1%. The lotus opened fully. A pink glow surrounded Itsuki as his wounds rapidly healed. Another window appeared. Lotus burst, LV2, acquired. All stats +20. Remove all debuffs and fully heal injuries. The monster watching him narrowed its glowing yellow eyes. A final window appeared. Lotus burst activated. Itsuki brought his hands together and clapped. A burst of force erupted instantly, followed by a roaring explosion of flames that engulfed everything in front of him. A blazing wave swept outward, and the monster's shadow shot through the smoke and sparks. When the flames settled, he stood there with blood running down his cheek, his hands still extended from the technique he had just used. With a calm breath, he looked ahead and said that Lotus Burst wasn't bad. Smoke rose around the scorched crater at Itsuki's feet as he examined the destruction. He noted that using only a third of his magic produced this much power, and sweeping away weak disaster beasts would now be far easier. But he admitted he never expected Overmimesis to restore magic that had already reached 0. As he stepped forward, something on the ground caught his attention. He stopped, staring at a glowing green crystal beside him, and quietly asked what it was. Meanwhile, outside, the receptionist stared anxiously at the bright red screen. She said that almost 3 minutes had passed since the rookie Itsuki went inside, yet there was still no sign of him coming out. She pointed at the display, where the status window showed. Challenge in progress. Stage level 10. Challenger Tenma. Itsuki. Time used 2 minutes 09 seconds. Seeing this, she nervously added that they should call the rescue team quickly. Choa adjusted her glasses and spoke calmly. She said she didn't think Itsuki would lose to level 10 disaster beasts, but clearing the stage within 3 minutes seemed impossible. Her sentence trailed off as silence fell between them. But suddenly, a new message appeared on the large screen, saying new record achieved. Seeing that, everyone in the hall froze. Shocked whispers spread through the crowd. One woman stepped forward, staring at the green screen in disbelief, whispering, "No way." Choha widened her eyes. She asked aloud how Itsuki managed to clear it, unable to believe what she was seeing, and the most shocking thing was that even 3 minutes hadn't passed. A final notification flashed brightly on the monitor. Challenge success. Stage level 10. Challenger Tenma Itsuki. Time used 2 minutes 14 seconds. Stage clear record updated. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the unbelievable result. The leaderboard screen displayed the results. It showed first place belonging to Tenma Itsuki, with a clear time of 2 minutes 14 seconds. Second place belonged to Tiwajin, who cleared it in 3 minutes 14 seconds. Third place was Hitansho, with a time of 7 minutes 17 seconds. Just then, Itsuki came out of the gate, his clothes torn and stained with green liquid. Around him, people reacted in shock. One person exclaimed that Itsuki had really survived, asking whether the green liquid on him was disaster beast blood. Another shouted that Itsuki was a full minute faster than Tiwajin. Someone else pointed out that the beasts inside were level 10 disaster beasts, and couldn't understand how a level 0 rookie managed it. Another voice added that there was no way a level 0 rookie should have survived. As Itsuki stepped forward, someone began to speak, saying Mr. Izumi was coming. Izumi Nento turned toward Itsuki, who asked him if he could now officially receive Commander Nento's guidance. Itsuki looked at him with a faint smile, and addressed him as teacher. Commander Nento responded with pride, saying that Itsuki had done well, just as he expected from his student. Standing nearby, Choha watched quietly. She wondered if her father was happy, saying she hadn't seen this expression from him in a long time. In the crowd, people continued whispering. One person shouted in disbelief that Itsuki was actually Izumi Nento's student. Another said it was no wonder he could break Tiwajin's record. But someone else added that even if he truly was Izumi's student, as long as his level didn't increase, there would be no room for growth. Just then, the receptionist came forward nervously with a decorated box in her hands. She explained that it was a gift for breaking the record, and asked Itsuki to accept it. Her expression softened as she apologized for the rude things she had said earlier. Itsuki looked surprised as he received the box, asking if he truly got something for his achievement. He said that it was fine, because a level 0 rookie challenging a stage like that really did seem reckless. He added that he was a complete stranger to them, and it wouldn't have mattered to anyone if he had died, but since she tried to stop him, it proved she was worried. Hearing that, the receptionist blushed deeply. She stuttered as she insisted it wasn't like that. Itsuki simply thanked her, which only made her blush even harder. Not far away, Choha called out, telling Itsuki that she was leaving, and not to lag behind. She tightened her glasses, annoyed, and warned him not to get cocky just because he had become her father's student. Itsuki straightened up and replied quickly, agreeing. Then Commander Nento, beside Choha, studied Itsuki and commented that a stage of this level now seemed too easy for him. He suggested raising the difficulty. He continued, saying that Itsuki should be able to challenge advanced stages now. Itsuki looked at him, surprised, and repeated the words, advanced stages. As the three of them walked together across the rooftop at sunset, Commander Nento continued explaining. He said that a disaster beast's strength was not determined by level alone. The most important factor, he stated, was something else entirely. He explained that the true deciding factor was species. Choa explained that species without intelligence, which moved only by instinct, were usually easy to deal with, but some species possessed intelligence equal to or greater than humans. She explained that such species were far more troublesome than ordinary disaster beasts. Choka continued. She said that awakened beings and disaster beasts were essentially the same type of creature, but with one difference. Only humans were said to possess jobs. Because of that, stats differed depending on species. She went on to explain that advanced stages contained these powerful species, or intelligent disaster beasts. Their difficulty was several times higher than normal stages. Most of the northern continent's advanced stages were located in North District 4, and she told Itsuki that this would be his next destination. She asked whether Itsuki had any other questions. Hearing her explanation, Itsuki suddenly remembered the two beasts he had defeated earlier. He thought about them in silence. They hadn't shown any signs of intelligence, and they hadn't screamed even when attacked. He wondered if that meant they didn't even have pain receptors. Itsuki's eyes glowed with sharp intensity as he looked up. He asked Choha whether intelligent disaster beasts had pain receptors or not. Hearing that, Choha suddenly felt a chilling pressure behind her. As she turned, her expression stiffened. She wondered what this terrifying aura was, and what Itsuki was thinking. Behind them, a group of people gathered and whispered among themselves. One of them asked if anyone had heard that Mr. Izumi planned to make Itsuki challenge an advanced stage. Another replied that Itsuki, who broke Teiwagen's record, should be fine. But one man explained that advanced stages were completely different from normal ones. More importantly, almost all the stages in North District 4 were under a single man's control. He said that every awakened person who had entered an advanced stage there had gone missing, and rumors claimed that the man had killed them. Someone immediately asked if he meant Kinoshita Reiji. Another man began to speak disrespectfully, asking who Kinoshita Reiji even was, and suggesting he acted like a king. His friend quickly covered his mouth, hushing him in panic. He warned him that he would be killed too if that man heard him. After all, he said, that man was the son of the North District 4 governor, Kinoshita Reiji. The scene shifted to a luxurious room. A young man lounged confidently while servants stood around him. He was the infamous Kinoshita Reiji. A subordinate asked him when he would be departing. Reiji smirked as he answered. He said that all the stages in North District 4 were under his control, so he would go whenever he wanted. To him, waiting in line was something only commoners did. He lifted his glass with a satisfied smile. After leaving from there, Itsuki opened the small ornate box, revealing a shining stone resting on a red cushion. As the three of them sat together beneath the shade of the trees, Itsuki looked at the stone and muttered that it was from that time. Hearing that, Commander Nento beside him asked if he had seen a karma stone before. Itsuki nodded and explained calmly. After defeating the disaster beasts inside the stage, something identical to this had dropped. But then he paused and added that there was a slight difference. He took out a green crystal. He stared at the one in his hand and said the color was green, but something about it wasn't the same. Hearing that, Choha's eyes widened in shock. She exclaimed that it was an intermediate karma stone appearing inside a beginner stage. She stepped closer, adjusting her glasses to take a look. Itsuki asked what exactly a karma stone was. Choha turned to him and began explaining. She reminded him that he had been a rookie. She said karma stones were also called experience stones. She explained that when a disaster beast or an awakened being died, karma or an invisible energy similar to experience points came from their corpse. Absorbing this energy increased a person's level. In other words, a karma stone was an object that contained karma. A figure glowing with energy appeared in her explanation, demonstrating how someone could use a karma stone to absorb the karma inside. She continued, saying that karma stones didn't occur naturally, which made the situation strange. Choha wondered aloud why such a stone had appeared in that stage. Beside her, Commander Nento quietly said it was probably because of Itsuki's gift. Hearing this, both Itsuki and Choha looked confused and asked again about the so-called gift. Commander Nento explained that normally, the karma of a defeated enemy would be absorbed by the one who killed them. Yet even though Tenma had defeated 2 disaster beasts, he never leveled up. That meant the karma had not been absorbed. He added that manifested karma never disappeared without a reason. He continued, saying that if his speculation was correct, the karma of the disaster beast that attacked the school had been absorbed by the awakened individuals present, meaning the people standing there. He explained further that a stage was an enclosed space. Because Tenma was unable to absorb the generated karma and there was no other recipient inside, the leftover karma clumped together and formed a karma stone. Hearing this, Choa looked startled. She asked how Itsuki's stats increased if he truly could not level up. Hearing that, Commander Nento suddenly stood up and reminded Choa that an awakened person's gift was top secret and could not be disclosed. Startled, she apologized immediately. Commander Nento then turned back to Itsuki. He told him that he could choose whether to keep the karma stone or sell it. He added that he would be leaving soon for a commander-in-chief meeting of the 5 continents, and that during his absence, Choha would look after him. Before departing, he said there were several things he wanted him to remember. Commander Nento spoke calmly as he listed out the rules. He told Itsuki to keep their relationship confidential, then added the second rule, never disclose his gift to others. The third rule followed. Itsuki had to clear at least 6 advanced stages before the teacher returned. A fourth instruction echoed after that. He told Itsuki to do what he believed was right without hesitation, promising that no matter what happened, he would be behind him. Hearing this, Itsuki smiled with determination and answered, "Yes, teacher." At the same time, at North District 4, Flaming Rock Execution Ground, groups of students argued with suited guards blocking an entrance. One of them shouted that they had arrived first and demanded to be let in. The guards refused. They said the stage had been reserved by the Kinoshita family's son, telling everyone to go home. The students grew angry. One yelled that having money didn't give someone the right to do whatever he wanted. Another pointed out that the privileged boy wasn't even there yet, and insisted they should be allowed in first. Their frustration rose. One threatened to report the situation to the Awakened Guild, saying he didn't care who the rich kid was. But before he could finish, a dark figure with glowing red eyes appeared behind them, cutting off their complaints. In the next moment, a powerful attack blasted forward. The students were thrown aside as a muscular fighter struck with overwhelming force, scattering them in an instant. Another student rushed forward, attacking the muscular man. A sharp white arc cut through the air as it struck with full power. But the attack landed directly on the muscular man's body and bounced back, sending shockwaves bursting outward. The impact echoed loudly across the ground. The blonde student watching from behind stared in horror. He muttered in disbelief that his B-rank skill, Earth Spine, had not worked at all. The muscular man turned, his face shifting into a terrifying form with glowing red eyes and metallic markings. He shouted that the attack didn't hurt or even itch. The blonde student trembled. He thought to himself that Earth Spine was a technique meant to pierce anything. He wondered if the man in front of him was actually a monster. Before the student could react, the monstrous man lunged forward and grabbed him, his red aura flaring violently as he towered over the frightened student. The muscular man smacked the blonde student's head. The blonde student slammed down violently. Blood burst from his mouth as his eyes rolled back, his body twisting from the impact. Around him, the spectators reacted in shock. They whispered that a level 7 and a level 8 student had been killed instantly without being able to defend themselves. They said the big guy was far too strong. Someone identified him as Oga Takuru, one of Kinoshita Reiji's 4 pillars and a level 12 gold elementalist. Hearing that, the crowd understood why things had turned out this way. Oka held one of the defeated students by the neck and warned everyone. He said he would not forgive anyone who tried to enter the stage without Reiji's permission. If anyone resisted, he would treat them the same way he treated the 2 lying on the ground. The other students watched nervously as Takuru lifted the struggling blonde student off the floor. The blue-haired student remained unconscious beside him. Oga shouted that nobody should think about helping them. The group of bodyguards in suits stood nearby, laughing. One of them told Oga not to go too far because the trash was watching. Another warned that if he kept beating weak students, the teacher would hear about it. Their laughter echoed through the area. Oga only scoffed. He tossed the blonde student aside with a flick of his arm, showing no concern at all. The injured blonde student collapsed forward, but before he could hit the ground, Itsuki caught him. Blood dripped from the student's nose as his body went limp in Itsuki's hands. Around them, the other students whispered in shock. One of them asked who the newcomer was and wondered why he didn't listen when they told him not to interfere. Another panicked voice said that a level 0 person was definitely going to die. Someone else stared at Choa and muttered that the beauty beside him looked familiar. Not far away, Oga glared at Itsuki. He shouted that nobody was allowed to pass without Reiji's permission. He warned that if Itsuki didn't want to end up like the unconscious student, he should just go home quietly. Hearing that, Itsuki lowered his head slightly. He calmly said that he understood. He wouldn't be able to enter the stage unless he defeated this man. Beside him, Choa raised her hand, saying she would contact the North District 4 administrator because this kind of behavior couldn't be allowed. But Itsuki stopped her. His eyes glowed bright blue as he said it wasn't necessary. He repeated what his teacher had told him, that he should do what he believed was right without hesitation. He then turned to Choha again and spoke plainly. He said he would leave the treatment of the injured students to her. Then he turned to Oga. As Itsuki stepped forward, a thought appeared in Oga's mind as he stared at him. He wondered who this man was. A status window floated beside Itsuki, showing his information. Tenmatsuki, human, level 0, fixed, job, order breaker, gift, special grade, skill, undisclosed, status, undisclosed. Seeing this, even though Itsuki was level 0, he stood firmly without any fear. Oga wondered if Itsuki had a rare job that allowed him to stay calm like this. Oga suddenly felt something strange. Even with his higher level, he felt pressured. He told himself that rare job or not, he was 12 levels ahead. The stat difference shouldn't be something Itsuki could bridge. Another window appeared beside Oga, showing his status. Oga Takeru, human level 12, job, elementalist, gift grade 2. After metallization, defense plus 50% in stationary state. Skill, metallization, status, attack, 110, agility, 100, defense 250, magic 145, total 605. As Oga stared, his expression changed. His eyes widened, and in the reflection of his pupil, he suddenly saw Itsuki rushing toward him at incredible speed. In the next moment, Itsuki's fist collided with Oga's body with overwhelming force, sending a shock through the frame as the impact landed cleanly. The crowd watched in shock as two students stared ahead, sweat running down their faces. One of them exclaimed that the speed was unreal and wondered if Itsuki was really level 0. The other admitted that even though he was level 8, he wasn't sure he could keep up with that kind of movement. But as the dust settled, it was revealed that Itsuki's fist had struck Oga's metal head, sending steam rising from the impact. Oga had blocked the blow with his metallization skill, his face hidden behind the shining metal layer. Seeing this, Itsuki pulled back slightly, his eyes narrowing as he realized the strike had been stopped. Oga then raised both hands, his arms transforming completely into polished metal. He looked down at Itsuki and commented calmly that the speed was good. Then he moved and lunged forward with overwhelming force, shouting that Itsuki's attack still lacked power. The floor shattered beneath him as debris exploded outward. Itsuki braced himself, analyzing the situation in silence. He thought about what it would take to successfully land a surprise attack on an enemy above level 10. As his body blurred into motion again, he concluded that he needed to further increase his agility using Thunderbreaker. Just then, a system window appeared. The display showed Tenma Itsuki's status. It listed him as a human at level 0, with a fixed job called Order Breaker. Nirvana gift, a special grade ability. His Nirvana skills were shown. Overmimesis, Zoo rank, Thunderbreaker, Love Library Run. Black Wall Love Library 2, On Lotus Burst, Love Library 2. All of his stats, attack, agility, defense and magic, were listed as 250, totaling 1000. Then another screen appeared. It detected a C-rank skill, metallization. At the same moment, Overmimesis activated and began analysis. The progress bar rose to 1%. Itsuki crouched on the ground, watching his opponent. He wondered if the threat level was high enough for Overmimesis to activate. He decided he needed to get serious. A new screen showed the analysis increasing to 5%. Itsuki observed Oga's metal-covered body in front of him and thought that normal attacks couldn't break through the metallized areas. He concluded he would have to aim for the parts that were still flesh. His foot slid across the ground as he accelerated. But Oga looked at him and laughed, calling him a weakling with no power or speed as he raised his shining, hardened arms to counter. Itsuki tightened his gaze as he thought to himself that his opponent had let his guard down, believing that the speed Itsuki had shown earlier was his maximum. His expression remained calm and focused, a faint glow of blue lightning beginning to trace along his body. Lightning wrapped around him as he prepared to accelerate. He readied his fist, and in that moment, he decided to increase his speed using Thunderbreaker. Across from him, Oga widened his eyes in shock when he saw the lightning erupt. He shouted in disbelief, wondering how Itsuki possessed the lightning element. Before he could react, Itsuki surged forward, lightning crackling violently around him. Itsuki declared that he wouldn't give him time to metalize. Itsuki continuously attacked Oga. Dozens of blue screens appeared around them, showing percentages climbing. 25%, 59%, 66%, tracking the rapid progress of the attack. Spectators from the side watched in shock. One man asked why Itsuki could use skills from another job. Another said the speed was too fast for his eyes to follow. Someone else muttered that the level 0 boy might actually defeat Oga. Oga himself struggled to react. Sweat ran down his face as he realized he had no time to metalize. He gritted his teeth, questioning how a level 0 could move so fast. Desperation grew inside him as he admitted that, at this rate, he would lose. Electricity wrapped around his entire body, trapping him. He couldn't even scream. Panic overtook him as he shouted in his thoughts for the others to stop watching and help him. As the lightning surged around him, Oga clenched his teeth. His expression twisted in desperation, and he thought to himself that he had no choice left. He would have to try that technique. With a loud shout, he suddenly tore off his shirt and released a burst of power. Waves of force exploded from his body as he activated his ultimate skill. Before Itsuki, Oga's entire body turned metallic from head to toe. Itsuki stared in shock, realizing that his opponent had managed to metalize his entire body at once. A system window flickered beside him, showing C-rank skill, metalization, analysis progress 88%. Oga glared down at Itsuki with glowing eyes. He said he was grateful he had never managed to metalize his entire body before, but Itsuki had pushed him enough to finally achieve it. He explained that metalized areas increased his defense by 50%, and his personal gift added another 50% whenever he remained still. With both effects combined, his current defense exceeded 500. His face twisted into a cruel grin as he looked at Itsuki. He said that he had originally planned to cut Itsuki in half, but as thanks for helping him complete his new skill, he would at least allow Itsuki to die easily. Watching from the sidelines, the other trainees were stunned. One of them exclaimed that a defense over 500 at level 12 was impossible to break. Another admitted that they had thought the level 0 newcomer would win, but the opponent was too much of a monster. Suddenly, a glowing blue aura wrapped around Itsuki. He looked ahead with calm eyes and said that if his guess was right, a full-body metal transformation required a large amount of magic. The screen beside him showed the analysis reaching 98%. Itsuki continued, saying that if Oga had used most of his stat points on defense, then his magic shouldn't be very high. The percentage rose again, reaching 99%. Across from him, Oga growled and denied it, calling Itsuki's reasoning nonsense. Even while refusing to believe it, he wondered if Itsuki was truly level 0, surprised by his sharp intuition. Itsuki kept his relaxed smile. He said he wouldn't bother using a boring tactic like draining Oga's magic down to 0. Instead, he declared he would finish the fight quickly. At that moment, the blue screen flashed. Analysis progress reached 100%. High above, a blue lotus-shaped aura began to bloom. Choha, watching, whispered that the lotus had appeared again, and realized that Itsuki was about to become even stronger. Others stared at the giant lotus forming around him. One man questioned if this lotus was really a level 0 skill. Another wondered how Itsuki planned to defeat Oga since it didn't look like an offensive technique. A notification window appeared. The analysis of the metallization skill was complete, and a new skill called Clear Orb had been acquired. Another window described the skill, Clear Orb Level 1. Active effect. It shoots a perfect sphere along a fixed path. The sphere travels at 1 meter per second and pierces through every enemy in its path while ignoring all defense. Passive effect. Every time an enemy with higher defense than the user is defeated with Clear Orb. Seeing that this new skill had defense ignored, Itsuki thought that if he hit with this, he could definitely deal damage. But the problem was flight speed. At 1 men-SS, even ordinary people could dodge it, so timing was crucial. But then Itsuki thought that against that sandbag Oga, who wouldn't even move, he didn't even need to think about timing. Itsuki's eyes glowed blue as he looked at Oga and declared that Oga's prized absolute defense would be thoroughly smashed to pieces. Just then, a system window appeared displaying Clear or B, Believe or 1, acquired. All stats plus 10, remove all debuffs and fully heal injuries. Status: Attack went from 250 to 260, Agility from 250 to 260, Defense from 250 to 260, Magic from 250 to 260, total stats from 1000 to 1040. The blue lotus petals opened as Itsuki stood in the middle, pointing his finger at Oga. Right above his finger, a small lotus flower appeared. As the lotus spun and bloomed, Itsuki told Oga to now try to dodge this. A system window displayed that Clear Orb has been activated.